before we dive into Unity and build this game, let's first create an awesome galactic background. To do this, you're going to be introduced to materials and shaders. Shaders are essentially image effects for your video games. Unity and I have supplied you all with a galaxy shader that we can manipulate to create a really cool dynamic background. To get started, we're going to create the background that our galaxy shader is going to be applied to. To do that, we need to use a quad because we don't have a sprite dedicated to our background. So we're going to use two triangles instead. So to do that, in the hierarchy, go to Create, 3D Object, and select Quad. This is going to give us a square on the screen, and this is a 3D mesh collider that is just going to allow us to apply an image effect, and we're going to create a dynamic galaxy out of this. If we had a background sprite, we could easily just use that, but because we don't, we're going to use a quad. So a quad is very optimized and efficient to use. It's only two triangles. Now, the next thing we need to do here is we need to make sure that the quad takes up the entire screen. So using the Rect Transform tool, which is next to the Scale tool in the top left here, we can then grab the corners and stretch it to each side. What we want to do is make sure you don't see any blue in the game view. And it's okay if it goes outside of this little screen divider here. This is your camera frustum of what your camera can see. And then what we want to do is rescale the game view and make sure that everything looks okay. And it does. The next thing that we need to do here is make use of the shader that's found within our materials folder. This is our shader. Now, it's very math intensive and very heavily coded. You don't have to worry about that. This is just an image effect that you can apply to your video games. And we've made it so that it's very user friendly to actually manipulate this to create our galaxy background, which we'll do together. To make use of this shader, we need to apply it to a material. So to create a new material, let's select our materials folder, right click, go to create, and let's create a new material. You'll see down here there's a material option, and that's going to give us a new material. Let's call this galaxy underscore matte. The reason I called it that is so that if I have hundreds of materials in my project, I can use the search feature to look at all of my materials. Now, if we select our galaxy material, you'll see here that this is what's called a standard shader in Unity. It allows you to basically turn things red, green, or add other different color effects or a texture even to your game object. Let's say here I wanted to turn the quad blue. How could I do that? Well, if you drag this material onto the quad through the scene view or the hierarchy, this quad will now have our galaxy material attached to it. If you select the quad, you'll see here it now has a galaxy material attached. And if I want to make it red, I can change the albedo color and make it red. Or if I want it to be blue, I can make it blue, and you'll see that those colors are being affected. So what we're going to do though is we're going to keep it just solid white here. And we are going to change the shader type to use our custom galaxy shader. So to do that, with the quad selected, you'll see here that it's currently using the standard shader. And if we drop it down, we can select the FX Galaxy. Okay, so go to Shader, Standard, go to FX, and then Galaxy. By doing that, you'll see here that our background is instantly updated to a galactic look. The next thing that we can do here is we can customize this. If we just run the game right now, you'll actually see there's some flickers, there's some stars, you'll see there's a blue star here, there's a bunch of flickering going on, and some parallax going on in our environment. What we can do now is using these settings, we can actually control this. Let's say here that I wanted a vertical scroll. Well, you'll see here that we have a scrolling direction. So here I can say 0 scroll on the X, Y is going to be 1, and let's say maybe 0.6 to have it come forward at us. This W here is a multiplier for how quickly you want your galaxy to move. A really easy way to test these features is to manipulate this data while in play mode. It's important to know though that this data will not save while you're in play mode. But here you can see here that as I increase this W value, it's multiplying the speed. Let's go ahead and see what other values we can manipulate here. We have our center positions, which we can tweak. We have our rotation values. Here we have iterations. We can mess around with this slider. And you'll see here the higher that goes, the more stars we're seeing. We have volumetric steps. Bring that up. Here we have form up. You can control this, bring that a little higher maybe. Here we have our step size. And the whole point here is that you make this galaxy your own. Play with these values and make it your own. The tiling, let's go and increase that a bit. And then here, your brightness. I'm probably going to keep the brightness at 2, but if you can increase it if you'd like. So I'm going to keep my brightness at 2. And then dark matter, I'm not 100% sure what these guys do. It's just kind of changing the lighting of our scene here. And then here, saturation and distance fading. Probably not going to touch these. Okay, so once you're happy with your galaxy, just stop playing Unity. And because the galaxy material is actually living in the project view here and not the scene view, when you stop pressing play here, when you get out of Unity, your changes are actually going to save. And that's because this lives in the project view. If you were to actually run this again and manipulate the hierarchy space or the scene space, so if I were to set the position of this to say 500, and then I stop playing, those changes will not be saved in play mode. However, anything you change that lives inside the project view, such as the material, that will stay the same. So once you're happy with your galaxy, just stop playing. And last but not least, we just need to save our scene and rename this quad to galaxy. So I'm going to select the quad and in the inspector, rename this to galaxy. And then let's save our scene. So just hit Control S, Command S if you're on a Mac. And within our game folder, I'm going to create a new folder called Scenes. And I'm going to call this Main or Game. And then I'm going to drag my game scene that was created inside of our Scenes folder. And then if I want, I kind of like having my scenes at the very top here. And unfortunately, you can't organize these folders how you'd like. So one of the cool tricks you can do here is if you just put an underscore in front of this S, it will push it to the top. So I like to have all of my scenes, which you can think of as your levels, at the top. Once you're done, save your scene, and I'll see you in the next video.